On March 14, 2019, firefighters arrived at 247 Ashwood Lane in Portland, Oregon to find the house completely engulfed in flames. Inside, they discovered the charred remains of 38-year-old Michelle Torres. What made the investigators pause, what made their blood run cold, was the positioning of her body. She was found in the center of her bedroom floor, arranged in a perfect circle of candles. All of them were melted down to nothing. All except one. And sitting in that circle, untouched by the fire that had consumed everything around it, was a porcelain doll with glass eyes. The doll's dress was pristine white. Its painted smile was perfect. And clutched in Michelle's blackened hand was a note with just 3 words written over and over and over again: I kept her. I kept her. I kept her. This is just one story. There are 6 more. And each one is worse than the last. In October of 2017, a grandmother named Patricia Helms purchased an antique doll from an estate sale in Charleston, South Carolina. The doll was beautiful. Victorian-era craftsmanship. Genuine human hair. A burgundy velvet dress with lace trim. She paid $45 for it, intending to give it to her granddaughter Emma for her 7th birthday. Patricia brought the doll home and placed it on a shelf in her guest room. That night, she woke to the sound of singing. A child's voice. Coming from down the hall. When she walked to the guest room, the door was open. She was certain she had closed it. The doll was no longer on the shelf. It was sitting in the rocking chair by the window. Facing her. Patricia told her daughter about the incident. Her daughter laughed it off. Said she was getting old. Imagining things. But Patricia knew what she had heard. What she had seen. The next morning, she wrapped the doll anyway. Gave it to Emma at her birthday party. Emma loved it immediately. Named it Charlotte. Slept with it every single night. 3 weeks later, Emma stopped speaking. Not gradually. All at once. She would sit in her room, whispering to the doll. When her parents asked her what she was saying, she would just smile. That same painted smile. Her eyes would go distant. Empty. When they tried to take Charlotte away, Emma screamed. A sound her mother described as inhuman. Guttural. They let her keep the doll. By December, Emma had lost 12 pounds. She refused to eat unless Charlotte was at the table. She refused to sleep unless Charlotte was watching. And every night, her parents could hear that singing. That same child's voice. Coming from their daughter's room. But it wasn't their daughter singing. The voice was older. Much older. They finally called Patricia, begging her to take the doll back. Patricia agreed. She arrived the next day. When she held Charlotte again, she felt it. A coldness that seemed to seep into her bones. A weight that had nothing to do with porcelain and fabric. She drove home with the doll in a box in her trunk. That night, Patricia Helms had a heart attack in her sleep. She was 62 years old. Perfectly healthy. No history of heart disease. The doll was found sitting on her chest when her neighbor discovered her body 3 days later. Robert Kane inherited his aunt's estate in February 2015. The house was in rural Vermont, surrounded by dense woods, miles from the nearest town. His aunt, Miriam Kane, had been a recluse for the last 20 years of her life. No visitors. No phone. Just her in that house. Robert had only met her twice as a child. He remembered her as cold. Distant. Strange. When he arrived to sort through her belongings, he found the house filled with dolls. Hundreds of them. Covering every surface. Sitting in every chair. Lining every wall. Their glass eyes following him as he moved through the rooms. But one doll was different. It sat alone in the attic. A wooden doll, hand-carved, crude in its construction. Its face was asymmetrical. One eye larger than the other. Its mouth carved into a grimace that looked almost painful. And it was heavy. unnaturally heavy for its size. Robert should have left it there. Should have sold the house and never looked back. But something about that doll drew him in. A curiosity he couldn't explain. He took it home to his apartment in Boston. His girlfriend, Sarah, hated it immediately. She said it made her feel watched. That the room grew colder when it was near. She begged him to get rid of it. Robert refused. He couldn't explain why. He just knew he couldn't. That week, Sarah started having nightmares. The same dream every night. She was in the attic of Miriam's house. The doll was there, but it was moving. Crawling toward her on splintered wooden hands. Its mouth opening wider and wider, impossibly wide, until it swallowed the light itself. She would wake up screaming, drenched in sweat, with bruises on her arms. Fingerprint-shaped bruises. Too small to be Robert's. The size of a child's hands. But wooden. Rough. She moved out after 2 weeks. Robert was alone with the doll. His co-workers said he changed. Became withdrawn. Paranoid. He stopped eating. Stopped sleeping. He would talk to himself. Or to something. His landlord found him on March 3, 2015. Robert was sitting in the corner of his living room, facing the wall. The doll was in his lap. He was rocking back and forth, whispering the same phrase over and over, "She wants to come home. She wants to come home. She wants to come home." Robert was catatonic. He was institutionalized. He hasn't spoken a coherent word since. The doll was returned to Miriam's house by the estate lawyer. It's sitting in that attic right now. Waiting. James Whitmore was a serious collector of haunted objects. He ran a website dedicated to paranormal artifacts. He bought and sold cursed items, treating it like a business. Like a game. In June 2018, he acquired a doll from an auction in New Orleans. The seller claimed it was connected to a series of disappearances in the 1970s. 7 children had vanished from the same neighborhood over a span of 3 years. The only connection was that each child had been seen playing with a similar-looking doll days before they disappeared. The dolls were never found. Except this one. It had been discovered in the crawlspace of a demolished home. The home where the last child was last seen. The doll was cloth. Handmade. Its face was stitched with black thread. No eyes. Just X's where the eyes should have been. No mouth. Just a single line stitched across. And it smelled. A sweet, rotting smell that clung to everything it touched. James was thrilled with his purchase. He placed the doll in his collection room. Set up cameras. Documented everything. For the first 3 nights, nothing happened. Then, on the 4th night, the cameras captured movement. The doll's head turned. Just slightly. Just enough to face the door. James reviewed the footage obsessively. He was convinced he had documented proof of paranormal activity. He posted the video online. It went viral. Thousands of views in a matter of hours. But then the messages started. People who watched the video reported feeling ill. Dizzy. Nauseous. Some claimed they heard children crying in their homes after watching. Others said they saw the doll in their dreams. One woman said her daughter started drawing pictures of the doll. Over and over. Hundreds of drawings. All of them showed the doll with red thread for eyes instead of black X's. And in every picture, the doll was smiling. James dismissed it all as mass hysteria. But then his own daughter started sleepwalking. She was 9 years old. She would walk to the collection room in the middle of the night and stand in front of the doll. Just staring at it. When James locked the collection room, she would stand outside the door. Scratching at it. Her fingernails bloody. Her eyes open but unseeing. James finally broke. He tried to destroy the doll. He burned it in his backyard on August 12, 2018. But when the flames died down, the doll was still there. Untouched. The stitched X's seemed darker. Angrier. James Whitmore disappeared 3 days later. His car was found parked at a storage facility on the outskirts of town. The facility had no record of him renting a unit. But security footage showed him walking into the building at 2:47 a.m., carrying something wrapped in a blanket. He never walked out. His family reported him missing. Police searched the facility. Found nothing. His daughter still sleepwalks. And she still draws pictures of the doll. But now, in her drawings, there are two figures: the doll and a man with no face standing beside it. In April 2016, a woman named Claire Donovan found a doll in an antique shop in Savannah, Georgia. It was a bisque doll. German. Early 1900s. Its porcelain face was cracked down the middle, splitting its painted features in half. One side looked serene, peaceful. The other side looked twisted. Wrong. The shopkeeper told her the doll had been in the store for 15 years. No one had ever bought it. People would pick it up, then put it back down. Something always stopped them. Claire should have listened to that instinct. But she was drawn to it. She paid $20 and took it home. That night, her husband, David, asked her why she bought such a disturbing-looking thing. Claire couldn't answer. She didn't know. She placed the doll on a shelf in the hallway. The next morning, it was in their bedroom. On David's nightstand. Facing him. Claire insisted she hadn't moved it. David didn't believe her. He put the doll in the garage. It was back in the house the next day. In their daughter's room this time. Their daughter, Lily, was 4 years old. She was terrified of the doll. She wouldn't go near it. Wouldn't even look at it. They put the doll in a box in the attic. Sealed it. Locked the attic door. 3 nights later, Claire woke to Lily screaming. She ran to her daughter's room. Lily was sitting up in bed, pointing at the corner. The doll was there. Standing upright. Balanced impossibly on its own. Its cracked face turned toward them. David grabbed the doll, drove to the antique shop, and demanded the shopkeeper take it back. The shopkeeper refused. Said all sales were final. David left the doll on the counter and walked out. The shopkeeper called the police, claiming David had threatened him. The police reviewed security footage. David never raised his voice. Never made any threatening gestures. But the shopkeeper insisted. Said David's eyes were wrong. Empty. That night, the doll appeared in the Donovan house again. It was in the kitchen. Sitting in Lily's high chair. Claire called the police. The officer who responded thought it was a prank. Told them to stop wasting police resources. But as he was leaving, he paused. Looked back at the doll. Claire said his face went pale. He asked where they got it. She told him. He left without another word. The officer's name was Marcus Reed. 2 days later, Officer Reed drove his patrol car into a tree at 60 miles per hour. He died on impact. The dashcam footage showed him looking at something in the passenger seat. Talking to it. His lips moving rapidly, his eyes wide with terror. But the seat was empty. Investigators found nothing. Claire and David tried everything. A priest. A medium. Burning sage. Nothing worked. The doll kept coming back. And then David started changing. He became obsessed with the doll. Protective of it. He would hold it while he slept. Whisper to it. Claire took Lily and left. Filed for divorce. The last time she saw David, he was sitting in the living room. The doll in his lap. He looked at her with empty eyes and said, "She's mine now." David Donovan was found dead in his home in September 2016. Suicide, according to the police report. But Claire knows the truth. The doll is still in that house. And sometimes, late at night, she gets calls from David's old number. No one speaks. But she can hear breathing. And in the background, the faint sound of porcelain tapping against wood. December 2014. An online auction listed a doll described only as extremely haunted, buyer beware. The description was vague. No history. No provenance. Just a warning. The starting bid was $1. The auction ended at $973. The buyer was a man named Thomas Everett from Seattle. He was a skeptic. Bought the doll as a joke. To prove that haunted objects were nonsense. The doll arrived in a wooden crate. Inside was a note written in shaky handwriting: "Do not give it a name. Do not look at it after dark. Do not let it touch your skin." Thomas laughed at the note. Threw it away. The doll itself was unremarkable. Composition material: mid-20th century. Faded dress. Tangled hair. But its eyes were wrong. They were glass, but they didn't reflect light the way glass should. They absorbed it. Swallowed it. Thomas set the doll on his mantle. Took pictures for his blog. Wrote a lengthy post about how people delude themselves into believing in the supernatural. That night, he had the first dream. He was in a room he didn't recognize. Dark. Cold. Stone walls. And there were children. Dozens of them. Standing in a circle. All of them holding the same doll. The same doll on his mantle. They were chanting something. Words he couldn't understand. And in the center of the circle was a woman. Tall. Skeletal. Her face hidden behind long, matted hair. She was reaching for him. Her fingers impossibly long. When she touched him, he woke up. His chest was burning. When he lifted his shirt, there were scratches. 3 long scratches. Deep. Fresh. Thomas tried to rationalize it. Told himself he must have done it in his sleep. But the scratches were on his back. In places he couldn't reach. The dreams continued. Every night. The same room. The same children. The same woman. Each time, she got closer. Each time, he woke with new wounds. Scratches. Bruises. Burns. Thomas tried to get rid of the doll. He threw it in a dumpster. It was back on his mantle the next morning. He drove it to a landfill. It reappeared in his car on the drive home. He tried to mail it back to the seller. The package was returned. Address unknown. By January 2015, Thomas was barely sleeping. Barely eating. His blog posts became erratic. Paranoid. He wrote about the woman in his dreams. How she was bleeding into his waking life. How he could see her standing in corners. Watching him. His last post was on January 19, 2015. It was just one sentence: "She told me her name." Thomas Everett was found unresponsive in his apartment on January 23. He was in a coma. The doctors said it was a stroke. But his brain activity was abnormal. He was dreaming. Constantly. REM sleep that never ended. And when they tried to wake him, when they used every method available, his vitals would spike. His body would seize. As if he was fighting to stay asleep. Thomas remains in that coma today. He's been asleep for over 9 years. And the doll was found in his hospital room 3 weeks after he was admitted. Sitting in the chair beside his bed. No one knows how it got there. The hospital has tried to remove it multiple times. It always comes back. The Whitmore Museum of Oddities in Philadelphia housed a doll known only as Subject 17. It had been in the museum's collection since 1982, donated by an anonymous source. The doll was porcelain, hand-painted. Its eyes were so realistic they seemed to follow you. And there was something wrong with its smile. It was too wide. Too knowing. The museum kept it in a locked glass case in the basement. Not on public display. Too many incidents. Visitors who saw the doll reported feeling ill, lightheaded, disoriented. Some fainted. Others became violent. In 2013, a curator named Dr. Ellen Marsh decided to study the doll. She wanted to document its history, trace its origins. She spent weeks researching. Found nothing. No records. No manufacturer marks. Nothing. It was as if the doll simply appeared. Dr. Marsh brought the doll to her office for examination. She photographed it, measured it, analyzed its construction. And she made a mistake. She spoke to it. Just a casual comment. "Well, let's see what secrets you're hiding." That night, Dr. Marsh's apartment building lost power. Just her building. Just her floor. Just her unit. She called maintenance. They found nothing wrong. The power came back after 20 minutes. But Dr. Marsh noticed something. The temperature in her apartment had dropped. She could see her breath. And there was a smell. Faint. Sweet. Like rotting flowers. She turned on the lights in her bedroom. The doll was there. Sitting on her bed. Dr. Marsh knew she had left it at the museum. Locked in her office. She called security. They confirmed the doll was still in the locked case in the basement. But it was also in her apartment. Dr. Marsh didn't sleep that night. She sat in her living room, watching the doll, making sure it didn't move. But she must have blinked. Must have looked away. Because when dawn broke, the doll was closer. It had moved from the bed to the doorway. She ran. Left her apartment. Went straight to the museum. The doll was in the case. Where it had always been. Dr. Marsh quit her job that day. Refused to explain why. But a colleague said she looked haunted. Hollow. That she kept looking over her shoulder. Whispering to herself. 3 months later, Dr. Marsh checked herself into a psychiatric facility. She claimed the doll was following her. That she could see it everywhere. In reflections. In shadows. In the faces of strangers. The doctors said it was a psychotic break. Delusions brought on by stress. They medicated her. Kept her under observation. One night, a nurse heard screaming from Dr. Marsh's room. When she arrived, Dr. Marsh was standing on her bed, pointing at the corner. "It's here," she was screaming. "It's here. It's finally here." The nurse saw nothing. But Dr. Marsh's eyes were locked on something. Something only she could see. Dr. Marsh died that night. Heart failure, according to the official report. But the nurse who found her said something else. She said Dr. Marsh's face was frozen in an expression of absolute terror. And her hands were clenched. As if she had been holding something. Fighting something. The Whitmore Museum closed in 2014. Financial difficulties. The collection was sold off. Most of it. But Subject 17 was never accounted for. It's missing. No record of sale. No record of transfer. It's simply vanished. And since then, there have been reports. People who claim to have seen a porcelain doll with 2 white eyes and a knowing smile. In antique shops. In estate sales. In attics and basements. Always watching. Always waiting. In 1983, a dollmaker named Victor Ashford lived in a small town in rural Maine. He was known for his craftsmanship. His dolls were exquisite, lifelike, sought after by collectors. But Victor had a secret. He didn't just make dolls. He made vessels. Victor believed that dolls could house souls. That with the right materials, the right rituals, you could trap a person's essence inside porcelain and cloth. He experimented for years. Tried different techniques. Different incantations. And then, one winter, his daughter died. She was 6 years old. Pneumonia. Victor was destroyed. But he saw an opportunity. A chance to bring her back. He worked for 3 months. Used her hair. Her clothes. Her favorite colors. And when the doll was finished, he performed the ritual. He called to her. Begged her to return. And something answered. But it wasn't his daughter. The doll opened its eyes. Victor said they were black. Empty. It smiled at him. And it spoke. Not with his daughter's voice. With something else. Something old. Victor tried to destroy it. Smashed it against the floor. But the doll didn't break. It laughed. Victor locked it in his workshop. Boarded up the door. Fled his home. He died in a car accident 2 weeks later. His house was sold at auction. The new owners found the workshop. Found the doll. They threw it away. But the doll kept coming back. They moved. The doll followed. They finally gave it to a church. The church burned down 3 days later. The doll was found in the ashes. Unharmed. For 40 years, the doll has passed from hand to hand. Owner to owner. And each one suffers. Each one loses something. Their sanity. Their family. Their life. The doll was last seen in 2022. Purchased from an online marketplace by a buyer in Oregon. A woman named Michelle Torres. She thought it was beautiful. Thought it would look perfect in her collection. On March 14, 2019, firefighters found Michelle's house in flames. And they found the doll. Still smiling. Still waiting. Because the dollmaker's curse doesn't end. It spreads. It hungers. And somewhere, right now, someone is looking at a listing. Reading a description. Thinking about making a purchase. Thinking a cursed doll is just a story. Just a legend. Just entertainment. They're wrong. These 7 dolls are still out there. Subject 17 is missing, unaccounted for, somewhere in the world. The dollmaker's creation is waiting for its next owner. And there are others. So many others. If you've ever felt drawn to an object you couldn't explain, if you've ever bought something that made your skin crawl but you couldn't let it go, if you've ever heard a child's voice in an empty room, it might already be too late. Because cursed dolls don't just haunt. They choose. And once they've chosen you, there is no escape. Only surrender. We'll be back soon with more stories.